Good afternoon. My name is LaTronda Fanar, and I'm presenting on the Benchmark Ethical Dilemma today. I'm from the School of Clinical Mental Health Counselor from Liberty University. Gonna dive right in, guys. Ethical Dilemma. I watched a video, Whose Records, by Pearson Media Player, and to summarize this video, it was basically stating a client and a counselor previously discussed a referral to another counselor, and they agreed, but then the client stated that she wasn't trying to be offensive, but didn't think their counseling relationship was fitting, so the counselor nodded in agreement, but then asked in a condescending type tone, what meaning is she getting out of going to see a new counselor every few weeks? She started to challenge the client's decision. The client responded with that regardless of what she was doing, she just wanted to go see another counselor, and she requested the counselor give her notes from their session, including scribbles that she may have created. She wants anything that was shared from other counseling sessions from other counselors previous to this one, and she also wanted all her files. The client wants her records and to terminate services now. The counselor states that will not be necessary. She didn't think that her notes or her scribbles would be relevant to her transferring, and the counselor states she believes that it won't benefit the client by giving her notes. And the client is, I just want my notes. The reference in that one was Liberty University, whose records, and we observed that in July of 2024. Step 1, identifying the problem, listing the main problems. In this particular video, the main problems were refusal to provide documents to the client as requested by the client, refusal to provide a reason why not giving the records, and autonomy, respecting the client's rights to make their own decisions and to have control over their own lives. Secondary problems would be creating tension with the client, being combative, and the client creating a stressful atmosphere for the client and putting pressure on the client. List of ethical things is not giving the client the release of their records as requested. Legally would be a violation of HIPAA. Clinical would be practicing unethically, basically running the risk of bad reviews and loss of other clients. Professional would be violating the Texas Administrative Code, TAC Title 22, Part 30, Chapter 681, Professional Counselors, 681.45, confidentiality and privileged communications. Disclosure of confidential information discusses how counselors has a responsibility to disclose records to the client or a person that the client may designate unless it's going to bring harm. Technical logical problems is possibly, I would say, the lack of use of equipment to provide the counselor with the necessary access, because the counselor, if they had proper online, apps or things, this counselor, maybe then the client could have just gone online and pulled their records and saw everything. Briefly explain who, what, or why the problem is, how I relate it. And I would say I related to the client in that she just wanted her information, regardless to what her decision was to transfer. She just wanted her information, and she felt like she shouldn't have to go through all of that to get it. And it was a violation of her autonomy by the counselor who was present. Next, we got apply the ACA standards and codes. List of ACA standards and codes. Section B6E and B6F states assistance with records. When clients request access to their records, counselors should provide assistance and consultation in interpreting counseling records. List of state codes, as stated earlier, the TAC code Title 22, Part 30, Section 681.46 and .47. Clients should have access to their records, and denial of access must be appropriately justified and documented. Discusses dual relationships and protecting the client's rights. Section C states that the counselor must avoid actions that may be harm to the client or impair their rights. Federal Code is the Health Insurance Probability Accountability Act of 1996, also known as HIPAA. Privacy Rules 45 CF4 164.524, which states that the clients have the right to access their protected health information in designated record sets, with some exceptions. Part 2 states confidentiality of substance disorder patient records. The patient have the right to access their records unless a qualified professional deems otherwise, and in which case the reasoning should be given to the client. Section 3, we're going to go with nature and dimensions. List moral principles that apply and explain. Autonomy, by definition, refers to the respecting of the client's right to make their own decision and to have control over their own life. The application of autonomy occurs when the counselor decides to debate the change in autonomy was non-existent. The counselor may be infringing upon the client's autonomy. Clients have the right to access their information and to make informed decisions about their treatment and their personal manners. And the counselor took that away from this particular client. When the counselor decides to deny this access without proper justification, it limits the client's ability to exercise control over their own health information. Normal fee sense, meaning of it is do no harm, and it obligates the counselor to avoid actions that cause harm to the clients. The counselor could have easily caused harm by not providing the records without stating why. The counselor needs to carefully assess whether providing the records will cause significant harm to the client or not. And if there seems to be a legitimate risk of harm, withholding the records may be justified. It will provide a paramount that the rationale be documented and that the client receive explanation. But in this particular case, the counselor did neither. Part 2 of the nature and dimensions. To cite some sites that we used, I used Record Keeping of Controversies, Ethical, Legal, and Clinical Challenges, American Psychology Association. This article explores the complexities surrounding record keeping in mental health. It emphasized the importance of balancing confidential and transparency, highlighting the ethical principle of non fiance. It discusses how withholding records must be carefully justified to avoid potential harm to clients while ensuring the clinician document their decision thoroughly and communicate effectively with the clients to maintain trust and fidelity. The counselor did no such thing. Another source that was reviewed was when and how should clinicians share details from a health record with patients with mental illness. American Medical Association Journal of Ethics. This article addresses the ethical argument for and against increasing transparency in mental health records. It underscores the principles of autonomy and benefits, suggested that allowing patients to access their records can enhance their autonomy and therapeutic outcomes. However, it also notes the potential for harm, non-offense, if certain information is disclosed without proper context. The article advocates for a balanced approach, recommending that clinicians assess each case individually and communicate openly with clients about their records. A list of experienced professionals and organizations that I'll consult is Family First Counseling Services, under the leadership and guidance of Senior Counselor James Reese, LPC, and Ashley Reese, LPC. This counseling service has and will serve as a mentor to me throughout my career and provide guidance when needed. Potential course of action. List all possible courses of actions to address and solve the problem. 1, I would provide the patient with a detailed explanation and summary of their records. I would invite the patient to review their records together during a therapeutic session, and I would seek supervision and legal consultation to ensure that my decision to withhold or provide certain parts of the record is ethically and legally sound. Potential consequences for each action. So on the first one, this would include key information relevant to the treatment without potentially harming or confusing the diagnosis language. I would also ensure that I have open and error to free space for my client to feel free that they can address any issues. I will ensure that all my practices are ethical and sound according to the standards set for me to follow. Literature support this particular approach as balance between autonomy and normal offense. I will provide summaries that can help avoid harm while still respecting the patient's right to the information. For example, Crichton 2019 highlights that providing clear, non-stigmatizing summaries can help patients understand their treatment without exposing them to potentially harmful language found in their records. I would also, for the next one, where it says invite patients to review their records, this way I can provide content clarity in any confusing parts and address any potentially distressing content in a supportive environment. According to American Medical Association Journal of Ethics in 2021, discussing records in a session can improve the healing relationship and reduce anxiety related to the reading of the records alone. This approach respects the principle of autonomy and beneficence by providing the patient with their information in a way that supports their well-being. And on the last section of it, where it says seek supervision and legal consultation, this will help balance ethical principles of justice and fidelity. Consulting with supervision and legal experts is supported in the literature as a way to ensure ethical compliance and protect both the counselor and the client. This method is recommended by the American Psychological Association 2019 to guarantee that ethical and legal values are upheld in complex situations involving record access. Action chosen. The counselor should do a self-evaluation to determine their ethical values as it relates to helping the clients. The counselor must understand the primary principle and legal standards that must be followed. The client's best interest should always be put first. Providing the client with a safe space to communicate will help in the success of the client's well-being. The counselor may need to review the state and federal regulations as well as the ACA rules and regulations. The client may have a right to change counselorship and request his or her records. The counselor must ensure that they assist the client in obtaining those records unless they feel it will be harmful. In this case, normal offenses must also be considered if providing the records could cause harm. The counselor must balance these principles and ensure that effective communication and understanding on both sides is maintained, and maintain trust, fidelity, and avoid harm while also encouraging the client's well-being benefits. Evaluate the course of action. Determine if any ethical dilemmas still exist within your chosen course of action. Yes, it still does exist because the counselor's ego/ability to follow rules and the weight of importance to the counselor will prove to be prudent. The weight of this importance will prove to be prudent to the counselor to help rectify the situation. Test of justice. in which you ask, a quote says, in which you ask whether you would treat others the same in this situation. That's from Rimley Harley 2022, page 18. Test of publicity. Quote, are you willing to have your actions come to light and be known by others? Same book, Rimley. I know I am saying this author's name wrong. Rimley and Harley, page 18 again. And test of universality. Would you be willing to recommend the course of action you followed to other counselors who would find themselves in a similar situation? Same book, Rimley and Harley, 2022, page 18. Implementation. Review ethical and legal obligations. Consult with legal counsel or supervisor. Access the reason for withholding records. Communicate with the client and rectify the situation. Reflect and improve practices. And my references are the American Council Association, the American Medical Association Journal of Ethics, the Bible, Crichton, J. Carey, and T.A. Morey, Health and Human Services for HIPAA laws, Simon R.T. Lilly, Rimley and Healy, Texas Administrative Code, and the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. Thank you all for your time. It was a pleasure. Have a great day.